victory for Rideable Crest Titans.
Last time out of the blocks in the Britpart British Cross Country Championship, Richard Kershaw returned to the series with a bang, taking victory in Bradford. Disappointment for Adrian Marfell when a drive shaft broke would see him settle for third, with Paul Rowlands slotting in between them to fill out the podium positions in second place. The championship now moves south and over to Sweetlam in Wales for the next round. A notoriously fast rally-style course with plenty of sections to catch you out at high speed. And to make things even harder for the crews, the UK was in the middle of a heatwave. On we go then to the first of the day's runs. No time for sunbathing here in Wales. It will be the early lead for Justin Birchall and Andy Powell. This course suiting them down to the ground along with the car more than the previous round anyway, and the seat time from the season opener would of course be helping as well. Former champions and winners last time out, Richard and Mason Kershaw, it would be second place. The times not as close as they would have wanted them to be, but second was a great start to the weekend, and pick your cliche, there was still a long way to go. The times were close, however, for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman in third place. They were only a single second back from Kershaw at this stage, and in fact had been ahead after the first run of the day, but a puncture on the second run would lose them some valuable time. Colin Gold and Simon Kerfoot make a steady start to the event. Closer to the top of the results this time out than they were on the opening round. They end the morning with fourth place. And hoping to end their disappointing run so far this season, Andy Di Giulio and Paul Foley make a cautious start to the event, having crashed out of course on the first run last time the championship visited in 2019. They were happy enough with the times though, and fifth place would be a good place to push from in the afternoon. Rob Bull and Victoria Vaughan make a great start to the event. Happy with how the car was performing and with plenty of confidence to push out there on the course. They end the morning sixth place overall. Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd will be back out again this weekend in both the new and the old car. Keen to try the Lofthouse car on these faster stages, and it was clearly going well. The pair ending the morning seventh place overall in that first of their cars. It would be close though, but he didn't have to worry about somebody else taking that seventh place, as it was in fact themselves that were closest on the timesheets. Get your head around that. Just 8 seconds the difference in the Lofthouse car and their usual buggy, which was now in 8th place overall. It's a bit like chasing the ghost on a computer game. Ryan and Darren Cook start the weekend off in a similar fashion to where they left us on round one. 9th place overall, second in the class at this stage, and just a few places back from Di Giulio in the class lead up ahead. And rounding out the top 10 will be Dave and Anthony Hooper. A great start this weekend for the pair, leading class 9 as well, and just a single second back from Cook up ahead. It would be a bit of a disastrous start to the event for Wyn Williams and Rhys Davies though. Clutch issues on the very first run of the day would put them out of contention. But they would get things sorted and would come back out for some seat time to see what their run times would look like. Sadly, there'd be no benchmarking for Mark Hones and Stuart Wade. It would be the end of their event on the first run of the day. They pull the Mini off the road halfway round the course and await recovery. So with just 2 runs complete, Sweetlam is turning out to be typically dramatic. The leaderboard is shaping up like this. Let's head into the next runs of the day then here at Sweet Lamb, and it would be much the same in the lead of the event for Justin Birchall and Andy Powell, keeping the hammer down. They were managing the lead well, and although nothing is ever safe in this championship, we've seen it so many times before, it was certainly about as comfortable as it was going to get. The lead may not have changed, but second place had. Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman overhauling that second place, coming back from their puncture and moving into that position. Birchall was going to be hard to catch, but they would be happy to have got up as high as second place at the end of the first day. That, of course, means that Richard and Mason Kershaw are no longer in that chasing position. They've dropped to third place. They were suffering some issues with the car, frantically trying to sort the brake issue out before the final run of the day so that they didn't have to take a maximum. It wasn't quite fixed for the final run, but they did just about manage to put in a decent time to end the day with third. Certainly not out of contention or, in terms of the car, out of the woods yet. Things were still going well though for Colin Gould and Simon Kerfoot in another of the Lofthouse cars. The time's still looking good and the pair ending the day with fourth place overall. There's disaster for Andy DiGiulio and Paul Foley though. Despite them being cautious out there on the course, their day would end with a bang. And not a good one either. The engine blowing on the final run of the day and putting a big hole in the side of the block. It's game over for the pair as they leave their engine internals on the course. They were looking set for a good result as well. And the attrition would continue. We also lose Rob Bull and Victoria Vaughan. The clutch going on the car as they queued up for the final run of the day. With no spare, it was indeed game over. For Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, there wouldn't be any change in the overall or class results other than that place gained with the loss of DiGiulio up ahead. They end the day 5th place overall in the Lofthouse car and of course maintaining that next position in their other car as well, lying in 6th place as well. The gap now down to 2 seconds between their two cars. So it was clear that they were pretty evenly matched at this venue. Ryan and Darren Cook would take advantage of some of the loss up ahead of them and push that car well to move up to 7th. And of course, with the loss of DiGiulio, they would now be leading the way in Class 10. Second in that class and making their way swiftly into the top of the leaderboard will be Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson. They move up to the top 10 now with 8th place overall after ending the morning in 11th. There's a place gain for Dave and Anthony Hooper. Maybe not a big change, but it was at least in the right direction. They were still leading the way in Class 9, of course, now ending the day with 9th overall. No problems to report for the pair other than a snapped brake hose. But that, thankfully, didn't lose them too much time. We'd also see another change to our top 10 as well. Toby Jefferson moving up to take that 10th spot now. Phil Ibbotson and Carl Gudgeon sharing the co-driving duties this weekend. Plenty of driving experience in that car between the three of them. This was going to be a weekend to forget for Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphin. Fuel pump issues on the very first run would be the start of many more problems to come. The car not running well all day. They wouldn't retire, but their issues would see them down near the bottom of our results. Here we go then for some of the classes outside of the top 10 leaderboard. And it will be the lead in Class 13 for Jason Rowlands, climbing up the results overall as well into 13th place. A rear puncture would hold Tom and Alice Jones back a little meanwhile, but they reached the end of the day with the lead in Class 16. A good start to the event for the pair. This weekend would mark a debut at Sweet Lamb and indeed the first time in the British Cross Country Championship for Steve Hill. Co-driver Anthony Jackson did, however, have a bit of experience here. They were happy enough with the pace to start the event as they end day one with 17th place overall and 4th in the class. In Class 7, there'd be a good, strong lead for Benjamin and Rachel Clay. They had around a half a minute's advantage by the end of the day's 4 runs. And for Nick Pritchard and Dan Evans, it would be the lead in Class 12. This course maybe not suiting the car quite as much as the opening round, but that wasn't stopping them being on a big push. For Carl Duffield and Martin Wellock, it will be the lead of Class 11, enjoying another good start on his return to the sport after a long time out of the seat. But problems on run 4 would lose the pair valuable minutes and potentially a good number of positions as well. There'd be no such problems though for Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley, other than feeling a lack of power was holding them back on the faster sections. And at Sweet Lamb, it really is fast, as we've said. They end the day with the Class 18 lead. If there was a prize for dedication, it would surely go to this pair. It had been a 10-hour journey to get to Sweet Lamb for George and Jacqueline Bryson, thanks to a blowout on the motorway. The car and crew feeling that they were much more suited to this venue than round 1, hence they still made it here by hook or crook, but sadly they'd have a few problems catching the dust of the cars ahead and only manage one good clean run. They come across an accident on the final run of the day, which would also see them back off a little to check that the other crew were okay, and of course that knocks the confidence ever so briefly. In Class 3, he would be the lead for Christopher Brennan and Nick Williamson, ending the day 32nd place. Jonathan Damrell would have a new co-driver in for this weekend, Will Gould standing in for this one. They were going well, but problems with the power steering would be slowing progress a little, making the tighter corners a lot harder as you might expect. 3rd place in Class 9 was about all that they could manage for now. Reese and Sean Mathewson would once again be sharing the driving. Reese taking the first few runs of the day, and they were going well, leading Class 14. The production spec Freelander coping well with this course. And here we have our all-female crew of Jade Pavley and Hannah Davison, who are back out once again in the Maxis-sponsored car. And just as she had been at the first round, Claire Williams also sharing the co-driving duties. Things started okay for the crew. The car was never going to have the top speed here, but it was handling the course well, and they were leading Class 2. Things were also going well for Michael Wilson and Ian Letman, up until the final run of the day, that is. They put the car on its side. Thankfully, with help from the marshal, they do get going again and end the day with the Class 4 lead. Thanks, Marshall. There'd be a similar fate as well for Chris Bayliss and James Harding. They do reach the final run of the day, but they too roll the car. The crew okay, but the car wouldn't be repaired for the second day of competition. Son Phil would be the first on the scene and would pull over to check all was okay. A weekend to forget for the old Forge Garage team. So with a bit of a first grueling day of competition here complete, here's a reminder of how the leaderboard is shaping up.
Yeah, it's getting back to where we meant to be, where we were normally running. Yeah, a bit of a slow start to the year, but getting back to it. Yeah, so it's been a good morning.
How's it been? Very hot, very dusty, very, very fast. It's been a particularly fast sight today. Yeah, we've enjoyed it. We've had a puncher second lap, which hemorrhaged just a bit of time. We're going to have a job to chase Justin down. I think he's going really well at the moment, but no, enjoyable. But yeah, hot and dusty. Yeah,
been an interesting day. Oil pipes and oil changes and lack of brakes, and yeah, it hasn't really gone to plan today, but we've finished. So I think we're still in it. So we'll see where we're at. I haven't seen any times yet. So we did all today's runs nearly in the last hour. So yeah, one of them days, but we're still here.
We're on to day 2 then, and after day 1, you get the feeling that just anything could happen here at Sweet Lamb. And it would be all change at the top. Having been in 3rd, then 2nd, there was only one more place left to go for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman, and that was the lead. A good push over the morning's runs would see them open up a 13-second advantage. Given the pace of our early leaders, you'd be forgiven for thinking that lead couldn't purely be down to the run times, and you would be right. For our day one leaders Justin Birchall and Andy Powell, a puncture would drop them some time, meaning that their advantage at the top was no more. In a chasing position now, and with a bit of time to try and make back up if they were going to take that lead once again. Richard and Mason Kershaw could only look on at this stage, but they'd have plenty to thank their service crew for, having a lot of work needed on the car overnight just to get back out competing this morning. But the times were looking good, and they remain third at this stage. Things were still going swimmingly for Colin Gould and Simon Kerfoot. They were making sure that they were the best of the rest outside of the podium positions, ready to take advantage of any problems up ahead, and you wouldn't rule it out. For Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, there would be some change on day two. They were still lying in 5th and 6th place overall, but things had swapped around now. The times were now better in the buggy than the Lofthouse car, but only by 2 seconds. And progress was still good for Ryan and Darren Cook. They keep hold of their 7th place overall. They would, of course, be leading Class 10 as well in that position. Dave and Anthony Hooper, meanwhile, managed to move a little higher up the leaderboard in these runs, up to 8th place overall now. Times on day 2 were already faster than day 1, so a further position was surely not out of the question. Just behind, things were still going well for Toby Jefferson, with Phil Ibbotson and Carl Gudgeons sharing the duties alongside. Moving up to 9th place now with a good advantage in that position themselves. And rounding out the top 10 now would be Jason Rowlands, still in the Class 13 lead and moving up the overall leaderboard as well, but there would be around a minute to find if he wanted to gain another position. So with the event moving into its final runs here at Sweet Lamb, the leaderboard is looking like this. So on we go then to the final runs of this grueling but dramatic event. And a look first at our class winners. In Class 14, it would be victory for Reese and Sean Mathewson. Sadly, it was a finish on a technicality, missing the last couple of stages and getting maximums when a heavy impact sheared the engine mounting bolts. They tried to nurse the car around the course, but there was too much damage done, resulting from the mounts breaking. They would be forced to pull over. For Jade Pavley, Hannah Davison and Claire Williams, it would be the Class 2 victory. The car had made it through this tough event in 37th place overall. And as if the weekend wasn't tough enough on this course, the continued high temperatures were causing some issues for Michael Wilson and Ian Letman. They would be managing the temperature on the car to get a finish, taking the Class 4 victory though, and 36th on the leaderboard. It would be a similar story for Jonathan Damrell and Will Gold as well. The alarm going off on most of the runs to tell them that the car was simply too hot. But they make it to the finish without actually having any issues to take 3rd in Class 9. There's no change for Christopher Brennan and Nick Williamson. They take the victory in Class 3, ending the event with 28th place overall. And after a good start, sadly for Steve Hill and Anthony Jackson, a broken steering arm on the penultimate run of the day would put them down the order. Up until that point, the car had been faultless all weekend, only the tyres needing changing. A disappointing end then, but they'd be happy with their pace for their first visit to Sweet Lamb. Wyn Williams and Rhys Davies had been put out of contention with their problems on day 1. But they kept things on till the end. An oil leak on day 2 was threatening to cause some further issues, but they were keeping it topped up. The real scare, though, would come when the steering wheel literally came off on the fast uphill section. Of course it was on the fast section. Thankfully, it was attached again before they left the road, and they backed off to get to the finish. Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley wouldn't have quite as easy a day on day 2. losing power steering halfway through. They'd also suffer a broken brake line on the final run, meaning that they just had to do what they could with a lack of brake pedal and use the gearbox to slow them down and get that car to the finish. The car would be off for an overhaul now before the second half of the season, and the pair come away with the Class 18 victory for this weekend. For Keith Lynham and Greg Spencer, it would be the Class 7 victory. A strong run for most of the event would be ruined a little with problems on the final run of this second day. Thankfully though, it doesn't lose them much time, and only a single place overall as well. They end the event 19th. George and Jacqueline Bryson will be another crew suffering from overheating. Themselves and the car, they modified the windscreen washers to point at the radiator in a vain attempt to keep that car cooler. It seemed to work, but they'd also have a worrying noise coming from the gearbox. No heroics then in the latter half of the day to ensure a finish. It does get them 18th place. Nick Pritchard and Dan Evans get themselves a good result this weekend, a few places better than their round 1 finish as well. They end the event Class 12 winners from 15th place overall. And after retirement on the opening round of the series, a finish of any kind would be good for Carl Duffield and Martin Wellock. But they certainly don't just strive for a finish. Look at this, ending the event with 14th place overall, as well as a hard charging Class 11 victory. There were more punctures to come though. Tom and Alice Jones suffering with just that in the later runs of the event. The course getting cut up more and more as the event went on, as you'd expect. They do, thankfully for them, keep things going to take 12th overall and the Class 16 win despite those punctures. We head on to the results for our top 10 then, and we see some changes. Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon moving up the leaderboard to take that 10th spot now. A good end to a difficult event for the pair. For Jason Rowlands, it will be 9th, unable to climb any more positions, but a strong end to this, the second round of the championship. Warren Roper and Alec Fern had less drama at this round than the previous one, you could say. They managed to reach the end of the event with 8th place overall, as well as taking 5th in the highly competitive Class 8. A couple of punctures would put pay to any more advances up the results for Dave and Anthony Hooper, but in actual fact they didn't really need to make any more progress. They take the class victory as well as a fantastic 7th place overall, fastest of the beam axle cars as well. For Ryan and Darren Cook though, it would be the Class 10 win. A great end to the event for the pair to not only get that class victory, but a strong finish of 6th overall on the timesheets as well in the process. Another notable retirement though, we lose Colin Gold and Simon Kerfoot. A slipping clutch along with transmission problems resulting in them taking a maximum on the final runs and slipping down the order, ruining what should have been a fantastic 4th place overall. For Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, things would change around on the leaderboard once again, ending the event with 5th place in the buggy. That means that the pair would also end the event with 4th in the Lofthouse car, racing themselves this weekend. It's kind of surreal, isn't it? The difference between the two cars would only be 9 seconds here at Sweet Lamb. We're on to the all-important and hard-fought as well podium positions then. And there would be even more change at the top of our leaderboard. Justin Birchall and Andy Powell suffering another puncture, dropping them further away from that lead. They'd also miss out on 2nd place by a handful of seconds and having to settle for the final step of the podium this weekend. For Richard and Mason Kershaw, it would be 2nd place then. They were unable to catch our leaders to take victory, but 2nd was enough for the pair to go away from this round still in the lead of the championship as we cross into the second half of the season. But all of that, of course, means that it's victory for this man. Adrian Marfell with Paul Bartleman alongside. A valiant effort as well. After missing out on victory at the previous round due to drive shaft failure, this would be a very sweet result indeed. It puts them in a good fighting position going into the next round where the venue is new to everyone. That is what you'd call a level playing field. So before we get the reaction from our event winner, here's a reminder of how those final overall results shaped up here at Sweet Lamb for the Britpart British Cross Country Championship.
Yeah, absolutely chuffed. Yeah, that was hard day's motorsport. We thought we were probably 40 seconds behind to begin this morning. Did a bit of a setup change on the car late last night. I just had a bit of a push this morning. Justin had a puncture, I think, which probably damaged his times a little bit, and then we just built on that. Just started to put a 4 or 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds a lap into them, and then it just eroded the lead that they got. So, yeah, really pleased with it. Yeah, good.
Oh, fantastic result after yesterday. We had a small fire, a broken wishbone and some broken boost pipes. So, yeah, I've had a bit of an interesting weekend, but fantastic venue and it's just fantastic. And the service crew have had an absolute nightmare of a weekend. They've been absolutely brilliant. And Mason's navigated for us. And yeah, it came down to the last run. For second place with Justin, and it'd be a bit miffed, but we beat him.
Don't smell too much. Not the finish I wanted at all, no. Unfortunately, it started off, lost my lady luck this morning, got straight into a puncture on the first quarter of the stage. That cost me dearly. And then I got a second punch halfway through today on the main hill, so that kind of compounded us to lose positions, and I've just been trying to claw it back. But then Adrian's he set out of the trap. He was aiming to pull back some time, and he's driven a blinder. So but we're in the points, so that's the main thing. So it's better than not finishing. So I'll take the third.
Next up, our British Championship crews head north to Kielder Forest, a new venue for everyone, and one that will likely offer a mix of fast and technical sections, not forgetting, of course, those killer Kielder ditches for anyone who's familiar with rallying that line those forest tracks. We will, of course, be there to bring you all of the action. For now, thank you for watching.
Care 40 for Rateable Crest Titans.